There's no one exact way to do it, but there is a rule that you've got to follow, which is you've got to show up as 1,000,000% yourself. And
That's
that
right.
is if you do a webinar, if you do a challenge, if you do video series, you just got to shine in your own right. And that sells.
Big show today, guys. Happy to be with you.
Gabby Bernstein, a role model for a new generation of spiritual seekers.
So Gabby and I both do webinars, masterclasses, webinars, workshops, whatever you want to call them, but we both do them. And recently Gabby did one for my audience, and my audience ate it up. They absolutely loved her. Her style of webinar was so dramatically different than mine that I didn't even know she was doing a webinar. My view of a webinar looks very different than Gabby's. We have our total own style. And we both do really, really well. It's not because we're special. It's because we just sit in our own style. Like, we own it. This is my style. This is the way I do it. And Gabby had her way. I had my way. There's no one exact way to do it, but there is a rule that you've got to follow, which is you've got to show up as 1,000,000% yourself. And
That's
that
right.
is if you do a webinar, if you do a challenge, if you do video series, you just got to shine in your own right. And that sells. So don't think you have to have selling strategies. You just got to really be yourself.
And where there's a will, there's a way. Because if you create a course, if you have a vision for a course that you want to create, or you think, or even if you're just thinking, okay, I've got some skills, I don't really like having this job anymore, I would like to try to explore creating financial abundance, then there's a reason you're listening still. There's a reason that you're still here.
True.
And that desire is truly enough to open you up to whatever the next right action and the next right action is. Everything that I've done in my career, and I know that this is the same for you, I'm self-taught, and I've found courses, or I've found teachers, or I've YouTubed my way to the understanding. But mainly I've taken the classes, and by learning the multiple ways that we can share our own gifts through the internet has been one of the greatest gifts of my career, because it's given me the freedom to be and do what I'm here to express fully and completely. And I often say to people, when it comes to marketing, I teach a lot of authors, as you know. I also teach a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs, coaches, yogis, healers, and so many of them want to scale their businesses. And many people listening now are that demographic. They want to scale the work that they're doing and the spiritually based work that they're doing in the world. But there's fear of marketing themselves, or there's fear of how would I do it, or they don't have the blueprint. And frankly, that's where you come in, because the step-by-step approach has to come from someone who's lived it and succeeded in it, but also somebody who's really clear on the delivery. Because the world of the internet and creating businesses online can be overwhelming. And when someone's overwhelmed, what happens is that they just halt. They just don't do anything, and they freeze. And so when you have the gentle path, that can be a really empowering process to get to the end game. So I just want to acknowledge that as it relates to kind of softening the edges around this idea that, who am I to do this? Like, somebody might be listening to this because they liked the title of, how do I create financial freedom? But then they start, shutting it down, saying, oh, well, how could I possibly do it? But you've taught people who never in a million years would have thought that they could do some kind of online business or a digital course.
Oh, all the time. I hear people all the time, like, never in my wildest dreams did I actually think this would work, but I did want that financial freedom more than anything. So I was willing to try it. So yeah, that's a normal thing I hear on the daily.
It's funny. It's like people say to me, like, well, how do I change my patterns, or how do I feel better? And my response is always the same. It's like, with the slightest willingness, you open these invisible doors for creative possibilities. And so that would be the exact same thing I would say to somebody who's saying, how do I create financial freedom? How do I get out of debt? How do I leave my job? Have the slightest willingness to create that financial freedom, to get out of that job, to change your patterns, your financial story. And that slight willingness will open invisible doors. And today, if you're listening to this, then this is likely an invisible door that's being opened, because I think that there aren't enough people talking about the ways that we can be abundant online. And I have friends that are online teachers that went from total food stamps to millionaires by following processes like yours. And I think it's really, really important right now, as people are really struggling financially, as the world has a lot of insecurity, to know and to feel empowered that we have resources and we have tools that don't require a lot of money to really get a message out in the world that can be abundant. And I think that's such an important thing for somebody to sit with right now and just take that in.
So true. I do believe there are so many possibilities with even exploring what would a digital course look like in my world. And it's funny, when I tell people I teach digital courses, I always say, I don't teach digital courses because I'm obsessed with digital courses. I teach digital courses because they are the path, the possibility to a world that I didn't even know existed until I did it.
I want to hear a little bit from you about the miracle of what it means to have followed your intuition and shown up for it, to be able to be in this life that you are living today, and what that really means to you. Because I think that that's the real promise. The real promise isn't cash and prizes. The real promise isn't, how popular you are online. The real promise is the life that you can create when you create financial freedom. And so I want to hear what that means to you.
Oh, it's such a good question. Personally for me, it's all about my family. And I have a husband who I've been married to for, I guess, 14 years now. And I have a stepson who has been in my life since he was 4 years old. And now he's in his first year of college. And I got into entrepreneurship when he was really young. I've gotten to be a part of his life from the get-go. I've gotten to go to all his wrestling matches and baseball and lacrosse and everything he got involved in. I got to be very present with him, and that was extra special for me. Also, my husband was a firefighter until he recently retired, and he was on, 24 off.
I hope you're enjoying this show. And if you want to get more Gabby, you can click the link below, subscribe to my Dear Gabby podcast on Apple. Be the first to know when the episodes drop, because they come out 1 week before the video. And you can download it to your phone, listen to it while you're driving, while you're cooking, while you're working out. You can just get more Gabby wherever you are. And if you feel called, leave a review. I'd love to hear from you. Now let's get back to this episode.
So for me to have a job where I got to work from home and be present with my family and there when my husband was home, because he wasn't home a lot, that was extra special. I have a beautiful marriage and a beautiful relationship with my stepson, and I really attribute so much of that to my lifestyle in terms of how I make money and how I do business. I am the boss. I get to call the shots, meaning if I don't want to work one day, genuinely, I don't work that day.
Yep.
I never thought that would even be part of my life. So the last thing I'll say is that 12 years ago, before I started this, never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd have a life that I have today with so much freedom on so many different levels. It's okay that if you can't even see it yet, but I did have this knowing, this little like flame in me, like, I know there's more. I know there's more. If you even feel a little bit of that, give yourself the gift of at least exploring digital courses to see if it might be something you want to do. Because I didn't have a huge flame. I didn't know this was all going to work, but oh gosh, I'm so glad I listened to it all those years ago.
I know that my listeners have that flame because they come on this show and they say, oh, I'm not happy in this job, or I've lost my job because of the pandemic, or I need I really want to get my message out in a bigger way. I know that it's there, and I can do my part as a spiritual teacher to teach people the methods for really claiming that desire and manifesting. But the thing about manifesting is you just don't sit on your ass and pretend like things are going to come to you. You have to take the direction, listen to the guidance that you receive, and show up for it. So you manifested this episode by having a desire to create financial freedom. You pressed play. You're sitting here now listening all the way 47 minutes into the end of this episode and listening to us talking about the path. Now it's your turn to actually take the action on it. And that is the secret to manifesting. It's to listen and to receive the guidance and then to show up for it, because you can't just sit around and pretend like everything's going to fall into your lap. So
Amen.
that's the, so I'm giving you the path, people. So many people, the reason I decided to do this episode and to help co-host this webinar with you and to host this masterclass for you to present your methods was so that I could give people the answer of, what do I do when I'm broke? How do I get out of debt? How do I take my ideas and turn them into a business? So many people have been asking you this year after year after year, and I'm just giving you the answer now. And I'm so grateful that you exist so that I can just sort of hand you off and say, go to deargabby.com/Amy, AMY, and just let her teach you. Let her be humble and surrender and just be open, because that's all that's required. If you like this video and you want to get more Gabby, check out the next one right over here.